Jared Poland, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and it's time for another photo of the week, or in this case, photos of the week. If you missed the 5-minute portrait with Adam Rosenberg, he's the nice tattooed-looking gentleman in the middle of the screen right here. Go ahead and click on that middle of the screen. It will take you to the 5-minute portrait where you will see me using the Nikon D3100 in 18-55 VR kit lens. But instead of just talking about one photo this week, I wanted to talk about this whole set of photos and a few other things. And I also wanted to bring in Adam Lerner, who's down here in the bottom corner. Yeah, Adam, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
I know that was a great intro. Adam's in the bottom corner. How about that?
I'm just hunkered down over here.
Yeah, I called you in because it's always good to get somebody else's opinion on my work, but also probably to go into more of what I wanted to talk about this video, which is how an 18-55 kit lens is fine. It's going to get the job done when you first start out, but how using just a better piece of glass can take your D3100, even your D3000, even just any basic camera, any camera with better glass, how your images can be taken to the next level. Not just because they're going to be sharper or give you better quality colors and contrast and things like that, but more so because you're going to save on your ISO. You can drop it lower. Your shutter speed will go faster. And when these things happen because you're letting more light in with your aperture, it makes your overall images much, much better. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So in this case, let's take a look at, let me just pick an image and see where it's shot at. All right, so we've got this image right here. Composition's cool. He's got the cigarette. He's smoking. It's not the greatest shot in the world, but I think it's good, and it's at 18 millimeters. It's at 1/30th of a second at 3.5 at 1600 ISO. Now, and before I do that, Adam, do you have anything to say about this photo?
Well, I can't see it.
Why? We're sharing screens.
Oh, we are?
We are. We're sharing screens.
Oh.
Is it there? Did you find it?
I don't see it. Oh, I don't know.
You don't see it?
Oh, there it is.
All right, you found it. Anyway, so I know it's not the greatest photo in the world, but you know what? Forget it. Let me just talk about the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO. I am heavily focusing on the exposure triangle as one of the most important things that there is to understand, and it's going to be in the Fronos Photo Beginner Guide, which is shaping up to be an incredible book for beginners. Not just ebook, but it's going to be like 4 hours of video, 3 hours of video, just straight up shoots and explanations to help beginners and intermediates just straight out get it. But let me just say this, shooting at 18 to have a 3.5, let's round it up to 4 just for fun sakes. And if I was to use, say, a 17-50 Sigma 2.8 instead of this, I'd go, instead of f4, I'd shoot at 2.8, which would give me a faster shutter speed. Instead of shooting at a 30th of a second, I now have an extra stop. It would then be at a 60th of a second. So there's a couple of things you could do. I could drop the shutters. I could leave the shutter speed alone and drop the ISO to 800, which is one stop. Or I could leave it at 1600 and double the shutter speed to 60th of a second, which would then give me the better ability to keep this subject sharp and in focus. Well, because not moving. Sound like right, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the tough thing about it is that, you're sacrificing capturing the or freezing the movement for grain.
Yeah, you are for grain, but honestly, let's just zoom in here. This does not look terrible, and I'm zoomed in 1:1 right now, and he's tack sharp, and sure, there's a lot of grain and dots there, but I'm zoomed in 1:1. If this was a tight headshot, for example, where are the tight headshots? Here we go. For example, I think this one. I think this one was better. Look, we zoom in.
Right.
Look at that. We're filling the frame. He looks great. So it's
nice and sharp. Yeah.
He's nice and sharp. So that whole thing about I wouldn't be afraid of noise or grain. We're not cropping this. And that's another thing that people run into trouble with. They crop everything. Now, if I was to crop this shot shooting at 1600 ISO using the D3100, the quality would just disappear.
Yeah, you'd lose a lot of detail, and you'd gain a lot of noise.
So, one, I don't find this to be a noisy image at all when I'm zoomed at a normal, out. When you zoom in, remember, this is one-to-one. This is like printing a picture that's bigger than a poster on the wall and looking at it.
When are you going to, unless Adam said, look, I need a gallery print for something, you're not going to be looking at your images one-to-one. And I think that's one of the common fallacies that people have. They're like, oh, it's so grainy when I look at it one-to-one. It's like, and what are you going to do with it? Like, put it on Flickr?
Well, and with that, it's so true that when we used to shoot 800 speed film, black and white, sure, it looked a little grainy, but unless you were blowing it up to the size of a wall, you wouldn't really notice it as much. And that's, you just said it is a fallacy. Guys, when you're out there and you're zooming in on your images, you're literally zooming in as if it was a 20 by 30, a 40 by 60. You're making it like it's a huge print that you're looking at from 2 inches away. That is huge. I mean, that's what you're doing. If you were to print this in 8 by 12, which most people don't ever go above, say, 8 by 10 or 8 by 12, you'd never see a problem. So, that kind of deviates from what we were talking about. So bringing it all back, when I talk about using good glass, I recommend, say, for beginners, 35-1.8, or on the Nikon side, on the Canon side, a 50-1.8. And I know I've said this a million times before, and some of you may be tired of hearing it, but those who may be tired of hearing it may have heeded that warning and picked up that lens and now get it and are thankful for it and see that it's helping other people. But just even if you had that 35-1.8 in this situation and you opened up, I mean, the ability to, one, drop the ISO is going to save you worrying about that noise and that grain issue if you really think it's a problem. I'm not afraid to shoot high with even the basic point and shoot camera, or you can now get a faster shutter speed. So just remember the triangle and how it works, and I will go into full detail with that beginner's guide, which is going to be awesome. Adam, what do you want to add to the whole shutter speed and lenses and the faster glass?
Yeah, I mean, look, the higher the ISO, you're going to be losing color information. Pushing the 3100 to ISO 1600 is probably maybe the maximum range you want to go, particularly for indoor shots like these.
Yeah, I wouldn't go past 1600, and that's what I told him. And I was fighting with, here, this is at a 25th of a second, but the VR helps in this case.
VR is going to be huge because that's going to get you a few stops.
And I was at it's going to get you a few stops handheld. But it's not like you can literally drop your shutter speed terribly too far and expect for it to work. And with that said, I'm going to say, guys, again, reiterate how VR works. If you're shooting in low light situations and your subjects are moving, VR will do nothing. If you are shooting in low light situations and you're shooting something that's not moving, VR is going to help. So if your subject moves and you still have a slow shutter speed, they're still going to be blurry, aka out of focus. So VR, OS, and IS really only means something when you're shooting subjects that aren't moving, or you want to counterbalance your shake at slower shutter speeds and hope that your subject doesn't move or blur.
Well put.
So I got that. So you see this is a 1/25th of a second at f3.5. Again, if I was shooting with a 2.8 lens, and we took this to 2.8, I would roughly be around at a 40th or a 50th of a second, which is a heck of a lot better than shooting at a 25th, because this is truly breaking the rules. It really is.
But, the other thing to be said about that, though, is that when you're shooting at a low shutter speed, you're getting more ambient light in the frame. So there's definitely a trade-off here because, the lighting on it's really nice. I mean, that window light is just soft and, it makes for nice environmental portraiture.
I still think I'd be, you would be able to do it with just about any shutter speed.
I agree.
It's just you run the risk that, I have some pictures here where he was mixing paint, and if you see this, it's like, well, that's not a very usable shot, but when same thing here. This is actually back focused because it missed. it's focused back here, so it's
Right.
not a usable shot, but I still show it to you anyway. But in a case like this, I can focus in on this tube and his hands, and it's not going anywhere, and I'm at a 30th of a second, and boom, it's working.
Right.
So I've probably deviated off of numerous paths here, and the point of the whole thing is just saying that, listen, you can shoot with anything, and I do understand that I do own a D3S and I have all the best glass, but there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to go pick up a beginner camera and a starter camera and do this. And sure, I have the knowledge, and Adam has the knowledge to do that more so than a beginner, but this, a beginner in 6 months, in 6 months' time, could really have the basic knowledge of how to get out of auto and shoot this stuff in manual and start to understand it better than Adam and I did when we started shooting film. So you have probably a pretty quick learning curve here, especially with all the help that's out there.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's not like we're focusing manually. It's not like we're, dialing in everything manually. Our cameras are doing so much heavy lifting for us. So, the job's been made a lot easier. And, even the D3100 is amazing what it can do if you think about what that's like compared to shooting with a fully manual camera.
Well, I'll say that, using a D3100, a camera that is $600 compared to, say, my original D2H, which was 4 megapixels in a pro body that cost me $3,600 cash money when I bought it at Allen's back in the day. The D3100 is probably going to take a better picture than that D2H ever took, which is so scary, but it is what it is. It's technology. It advances.
Yep. But some of the glass that you had from that D2H, you probably still could be using today.
I had the 17 to 55. I had the 70 to 200 VR1. I used all good glass on it, which really, I got amazing shots out of that D2H. I mean, sure. Again, comes down to just understanding these shutter speeds and how one thing affects the other, and also that good glass doesn't have to be extremely too expensive, but seeing where those 2.8 lenses or those 1.8 lenses could change the quality that you get. Because if you say, oh, I have a kit lens and I get all this grain when I zoom in because I have to shoot at 3200 and I'm getting motion blur, then just think about the better piece of glass that isn't really too expensive. And I know, $200 is a lot of money to everybody. It's still a lot of money, $200. But the time and effort and mental distress that you save when you get it and you go, I see, I'm shooting at 2.8, and now it's not out of focus, or it's not out of focus because of slow shutter speed movement. It's, it's right on. I don't know. It's the difference between getting a shot that makes you money and getting a shot that just doesn't. So,
yep.
I'm leaving it there. I guess this was kind of ranty this week, but I don't know. I just felt like saying it. Whatever I said.
I think what it really does come down to is that, given the choice, you're going to go for the best glass that you can afford, and you're going to probably try to shoot with a pro body. But if all you have is, or what you have is a D3100 or an entry-level DSLR, you can still take amazing shots. It's just a matter of, understanding the light, understanding, your framing, and just, getting the most that you can out of what you're working with.
Yeah, I think this was one of the stronger shots that I took. I saw,
That's
he was reaching for something, so I asked him to hold. Even though they're candid shots, there's nothing wrong with asking the subject to hold. And you can see that this is at 1/20th of a second, at 18 millimeters at 3.5, again at 1600 ISO, and this is a solid image because he's still, but if he was painting and moving, there's really no way that I would have been able to accomplish this at 1600 ISO with this 3.5 lens and such a slow shutter speed.
Yep.
So,
and the thing that really I like about this is the way his face is lit, and that we've got his left eye, in obviously in focus, but kind of looking a little bit toward the camera. I don't know, it really draws you in.
Yeah, and the one thing I wanted to point out here is when I was taking this picture, I changed my composition. When I was looking, I saw, and that's the reason I took this picture right here, that I was cutting off his shoulder, and I didn't need to. This was going through my mind when I took the first picture here. So I saw it, I recomposed without thinking, because I just wanted to make sure that it was even, and I got that in his shoulder here. And then I was like, oh, well, I might as well show you what I was looking at and see what the difference between cutting off that arm, which was this, and then recomposing and getting it in there. The difference is immense. You know, this is a stronger
And you know
image.
why it really works so beautifully is because basically the wall, the back wall behind him, is acting as a bounce, which is giving some backfill and giving definition to his form, thus making the image even more compelling. And that's the thing, is like you have to be able to, which you do, and just telling other people, just sharing with the readers, look at your environment and see what the light is doing, and understand that that window is a giant softbox and it's just shooting light out into the room, and then you've got that wall right over there, it's just bouncing the light back in. And if you can understand that, you can also understand how to nicely situate your subject and get even a better image by, you know, utilizing that natural light to, you know, the best you can.
Sure, and with this whole scene, it looks bright, but it was getting late. It was like 5, 6 o'clock. There was a thunderstorm rolling in, and I was fighting for light, but I was able to, you know, with the raw file and the way that I shot this, to make it look, you know, I think it looks solid. Just remember, when it comes to this framing, this looks painful to me because I cut off his arm and I didn't need to, but this looks so much stronger, and that's why I went with it. I know, again, another whole tangent, and I'm going to finish it off at that. So I hope that this helped you out. Leave some comments, leave some feedback onto what you think about the whole ranting about the photos of the week, and if you picked up some information, what information did you pick up? Adam, thanks for taking the time to come over.
Yep, thanks, Jared.
Literally come over the internet and join in on this chat. So that's about it, guys. That's a photo of the week with this whole photo shoot, and we're probably going to put this whole photo shoot to rest now that I've done a couple videos involving it. That's about it. Let me know what questions you've got. Leave them in the comments. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.